Good day, everyone. Again, I am Geraldine S. Rivas of Jose Balazo Memorial Elementary School, Kauswagan District. My topic for today is about paper and pencil instruments. So we will be learning what are the paper and pencil instruments. So before
For
that,
that,
we have
we have
these
this
objectives.
objective.
At the end of the session, participants should be able to first enumerate different paper and pencil instruments for data collection in action research. Second, cite the advantages and disadvantages of using paper and pencil instruments. Third, determine the appropriate paper and pencil instruments for specific action research topics. Fourth, acquire item writing skills for paper and pencil instruments. And fifth, state ethical practices in administering paper and pencil instruments. So these are the objectives. So the key understandings are the following. Paper and pencil instruments involve the use of tests, standardized tests, and teacher-made tests, rating skills, checklists, questionnaires, and similar tools that require research participants to mark or write their responses on paper. Second, instruments administered online, especially now that we have this pandemic, such as questionnaires sent through email or through websites, are also considered paper and pencil instruments. The computer screen and keyboard serve as virtual paper and pencil. Okay, we will start with understanding paper and pencil instruments. One of the characteristics of paper and pencil instruments is that they usually yield quantitative data. Quantitative data are those that can be counted, calculated, tallied, or rated. In tests, the number of correct answers can be counted. In rating scales, 1 indicates the degree of his or her feelings, attitudes, interest, or perceptions using a numerical scale. In checklists, the number of items marked are also counted. So paper and pencil instruments is yield quantitatively. So quantitative data. Collecting data as accurately as one is an important aspect of action research. When data collected is not accurate, the information obtained through or from the study might ultimately lead to invalid results. The accuracy of information associated with quantitative data collected from paper and pencil instruments is one of the advantages in using these methods for research. Okay, let's proceed with the most frequently used forms of paper and pencil instruments. First one is standardized test. So this is common to us. We are undergoing this. We are using this one. These tests undergo rigid development and research to obtain high quality in terms of reliability and validity. These are often produced by private corporations and are available commercially to psychologists and clinicians. Some of the popular ones are those that measure either a student's aptitude or achievement, such as the following: Iowa Achievement Assessments, California Achievement Test, Terranova Test, and Scholastic Aptitude Test. These tests come with a manual that contains instructions for the administration, the scoring, and the norm reference interpretation. In the Department of Education, we have the Philippine Informal Reading Inventory, PhilERI, the Early Language and Numeracy Assessment, and the National Achievement Test, or the NAT. These three, we are having this one in assessing our pupils. So sa PhilEri, ang ilang reading skill, kung asa na sila nga level, na ilang reader, then independent, then the ELNA, for this is usually for lower grades, and the National Achievement Test for the grade 6. So these are called standardized. Nganong man? Because these are administered under the same conditions to warrant fair comparison of student performance through the use of interpretation tables based on data collected from a normative sample. So standardized test, mo na dyan na siya ang gamiton sa tanan. Dili pwede nga kung diri sa Lanao del Norte, kani siya nga NAT nga test, lahi pod ang dito sa Iligan City. But standardized test is tanan nga mga sa whole Philippines, this PhilEri, ELNA, anat gigamit ni siya sa whole Department of Education. So, klaro na ning standardized test. Proceed to the second one, the teacher-made test, also known as classroom-made test. So, we are used to it. We are making tests. So, di common na kaini sa atuan ning teacher-made test. These tests developed by these are tests developed by teachers to measure the achievement of students in their classrooms. These are similar in format and content to standardized tests, except that their psychometric properties such as reliability and validity are not as rigidly determined. So, in our case, we are using, or we are making this teacher-made test. Prior to this, we have the so-called table of specification. Dili pa din na moderecho ta o then napadjud ng budget of work. Magkuan pa kag budget of work nga kani siya nga pila ka days, and then proceed to the table of specifications nga naka-identify dito ang commonly used kung wala pay bag-ong type of way of doing the TOS, the Bloom's taxonomy, the level, katong remembering kato siya, kato ang ginagamit sa teacher in doing the table of specifications. And then pag na budget na niya, that's the time maghimo na din siya test following the TOS. So dili pwede diretso taghimo og test wala tay TOS. So these are similar in forma. Okay, so ako na itong ingon ganina. So teacher-made test is also part of gathering data. Okay, next, rating scales. As a rating scale is a set of categories designed to elicit information about qualitative and quantitative attribute. Ayolon jud mo ka problema aning qualitative o quantitative kay I'm sure napadyoy sige gunahon sa gali ning qualitative o quantitative. I-explain further again ni sa atong mga uban nga speakers. So qualitative and quantitative attribute. The most common rating scales are Likert scales, which present statements that are to be appraised according to the degree of one's agreement or disagreement with them. So other rating scales called Likert type scales, present characteristics, behaviors, skills, or other similar attributes. Respondents are then asked to indicate the frequency of these traits. So example, mora gini ako na example. So, first question is, kuani siya, climate. Indicate your feelings about the climate in your school by circling the letter corresponding to your choice. My child is safe. Sa parent ni siya nga kuan. Rating scale. My child is safe while at school. So, A, strongly agree. B, agree. C, neither agree nor disagree. D, disagree. E, strongly agree. So, iyahang i-circle asa iya ang na-feel. So, mautogingon ka ganina is the degree of one's agreement or disagreement. Mo na siya rating scale. Okay, proceed. Checklist. These are lists of things that can include psychological or personal qualities, things or objects that respondent have to mark, excuse me, usually with a check mark to indicate their presence or existence. So, example is this, whether it's a yes or no, observe or not observe, present or not present. Pwede depende sa imuang questions or statement nga imuang gusto i-gather nga data. So again, you are going to answer yes or no. Maybe it's a observe or not observe, present or not present. Okay, depende sa researcher. The last one is questionnaires. These are sets of questions that research participants are asked to answer. Questions may be close-ended. So in the close-ended, respondents are provided with choices from which they are to select. So mamili lang sila dito og choices. Na ay choices, mamili lang sila answer. Close-ended. They may also be open-ended. Respondents supply or construct their own responses. So na question, the respondents will supply their responses, open-ended. How do you feel when listening to or when having the role playing? How do you feel? What are your reactions? What are your feelings? Mga yun ana. So ilang i-write down dito tanan ang ilaang na feel about after sa activity. So, what siya example? Some questionnaires contain both close-ended and open-ended questions. So, dili lang ang questionnaire kay kani siya close-ended ra dapat ha, then this one open-ended lang dapat dili. There are those questionnaires na naa siya close-ended na pud siya open-ended. So, this is an example of a questionnaire. So, iyaha is girate lang niya ang interest. Like for example, I make myself prepared for the math subject. So, unsa man ang iyahang gipili? 5 always, 4 often, 3 sometimes, 2 rarely, 1 never. So, depende sa pag-formulate ninyo sa questionnaire kung kay there are those, like this one, mura-mura siya og rating scale nga how, the degree. Pero kani siya is kanus aman siya nakita. Like for example, always, often, sometimes, rarely, or never. So pwede pa ni siya din. There are those close, open-ended questions po. Katong explain ka ganina. So the following are the advantages and disadvantages of using paper and pencil instruments for your research. So, mao gini siya, dili na jud nato siya ma-deny ang fact nga magkuyog gini silang duha. If there is an advantage, there are those disadvantages. So first, we will discuss about the advantages of having the paper and pencil instruments. The first one, it allows for administration to large groups of students. Kay pwede ramanin mo siya i-distribute ang questionnaire. Example. Second, suitable for appraising intelligence, scholastic aptitude, intellectual ability, attitude, reflections, and thinking process. So, i-appraise niya ang intelligence, nga na, muna siya ang makuha niya kung kani nga bata is kuan ni siya, anak. Maayo ni siya, kani siya dili. Third one is useful for assessing individual students. Kay imo naman siya iya nga at isa-isa nga mga, for example, questionnaire. Imo nang ma-assess kung kani siya nga bata, dili gyud ni siya ganan ani nga subject, kani siya ganahan siya ani nga subject, ay katulgon siya ani. So unsa akong buhaton ani. So imong ma-assess ang imong individual students. And the last one can be encoded and analyzed easily. Dali ra gyud siya i-encode ang result, dali ra pud siya i-analyze kung paper and pencil instrument. We will proceed to the disadvantages. So, mas daghan siya. Upat ra diri, then diri is 6. First disadvantage is limited to measuring knowledge, mental abilities, observable behaviors, and other psychological characteristics. Nganong limited? Kaya naa naman siya naka-state naman dito kung unsa nga mga ability, unsa nga behavior ang imong gusto i-measure. So, ilan na lang i-check, ilan na lang i-identify, o sa nga degree of agreement. So, limited ra jud siya. Second, can be fake. O, diba? Ma-fake daw. Respondents may not give truthful responses. O sa ka-reason, yan ang ma-fake, yan ang dili sila muhatag, kay mahadlok sila nga kanang makuha gyud ang tinuod nila nga attitude or behavior. Dili nila itug-an ang tanan. Third, susceptible to guessing for objective test. So, kanilang siya. Ako lang ni siyang i-check. Kay magpili-pili lang ni ani. Kay parihaan ng multiple type of test. Okay, so piyong lang sila daw. Okay, nakadungog ko ani sa student, magpiyong lang daw sila, then murag naa sila nakita nga letter, mauna daw to ilang answer. So, gag-guess na sila. So, mauna siya disadvantage pod sa paper and pencil instruments. Fourth, difficulty in writing good items or statements. So, lisod jud paghimo og good items, especially if ikuan pa siya, i-identify pa after the pilot testing, mawala tong uban nga mga questions. So, in formulating questions or test, dili jud siya dali. So, you have to think of nga misut gyud siya sa imong competencies. Dili siya ana nga diretso mauna ni siya. Dili pud ta pwede mangupya og questions dinhi sa internet, but we have to formulate our own questions. Fifth, may require lengthy procedures for development to ascertain psychometric qualities like reliability and validity. So, taas kay nga procedure ang paper and pencil instruments. And the last one is not appropriate for assessing skills. So, mo na gid siya ang reality. If there are those advantages, naapod tay mga disadvantages in conducting or in using the paper and pencil instruments. So, klaro na nato na. So, ato nang mapili kung unsa nga type of instrument atong gamiton sa atong study. Next is how to prepare paper and pencil instruments. Paper and pencil instruments created by action researcher such as teacher-made tests, rating scales, checklists, and questionnaires are most effective if they are constructed with clear, klaro, and succinctly stated questions. If the attributes the measure are well defined and if they are sufficiently cover the topic of the research, dapat nag-jive gid siya og unsa ang gipangita sa researcher nga data. The following are points to consider when developing paper and pencil instruments. The first one is specify the objective or objectives of the test, rating scale, checklist, or questionnaire. Mao ginay pinaka-first. I-identify gid nimo unsa man ang akong target objective ani nga test, ani nga checklist, ani nga questionnaire. Pinakauna gid na mag-identify gid ta, mag-specify gid ta sa mga objectives. Second, define the ability content knowledge, the skill or attribute that you want to measure. Unsa man dayon akong gusto i-measure. Okay. Muna ang problema. Muna akong target objective. So, unsa man ang akong i-measure? I-measure na ko ang ilaang ability sa ilaang academic performance. Ingon na example, for ability, the content knowledge or skill, examine the competencies expected. So, katog yun, kani, competencies. Di naman po din common po nato ang competencies. For any other personal attribute, read, okay, so you will read the literature published on that trait. So, mo to identify first, specify, then identify the ability. The third one is, muna niya kung giingon ka ganina, develop the table of specifications or outline of the content of the questionnaire. Dili diretso-diretso maghimo tag test nga wala tay TOS, dili po diretso maghimo tag questionnaire nga wala tay outline. The table of specifications is a two-way grid that shows that specific contents of the test are dimensions of the trait to be measured with the proposed number of items for each. Okay. So, next is create potential test items or item pool. Okay, dili pod pwede nga you will need 20 item test and then you will only have 20 item test because in my case, my first research is I have 60 or 70 items and then after the pilot testing sa field test na siya, ang gibili na lang day namo is 20 items. Katulad yung mga kuan na questions suitable for the set of pupils. Kay dili man pud magpareho ang bata. Kay there are those pupils nga ay school, dili pareha ang mga bata sa kada school nga kani siya nga test kay pag field test manggod ana niya kay ikuan pa man na siya. Kung kani nga question lisod ra kaayo dili pwede. Kani siya nga question easy ra kaayo so katanan maka-answer dili pwede. But katurag yung question nga dili lisod kaayo dili pud siya sayon kaay katuray mga bilin. Mo gini siya ang mahitabo. So it is better to prepare more items than the needed to give room for selecting good items. So sa ako ang i-conduct na study before, nagamit ni og SPSS, siya ang ni remove. Mo identify siya nga too difficult. So remove item number, ana. Then too easy, remove item number. So ang nabili na lang yun is 20. For teacher-made test, there are specific guidelines for different types of objective items. So mga to siya for teacher-made test. For rating scales, it is advised to have about equal number of positively stated and negatively stated items to avoid response sets. So kung pila ka book imong positive, like for example, naa kay 10 ka positive statement, naa po kay 10 ka negative statement para mabalance pod nga dili kay puro ra negative, puro ra pod siya positive. For questionnaires, items should be logically sequenced. So, imo gyud siyang i-arrange. Then, items or statements should be brief, concise, and direct to the point. Dili na tong daghan pang paligoy-ligoy nga ang nagbasa sa imong questionnaire, galibog nag-answer kay daghan pa kaay kag mga bulak-bulak sa imong statement. So, dapat direct, brief, and concise ang atong items nga ibutang sa mga questionnaires. Fifth is select items from the item pool for the draft of the instrument. So, imo na i-select na naghimo na ka, then nag-select na ka, mao na lang man to siya nabilin. And then, prepare an answer key or scoring plan for the item selected. Gini na to kalimtan to prepare an answer key. And then, 7, submit the draft of the test for content validation by subject matter expert and if possible by a test or measurement expert. So, imo siyang, na siya content validation, imo siyang ipatanaw ang imong mga imong mga questions para at least ma-validate pag yun siya. It will undergo series of validation to the experts. Kay dili pwede nga sakto na ni nga test, dili na nako ni adto sa expert kay kabalo ko nga sakto na ni. No, because even unsa na to siya ka-insakto, kung ato pa siyang ipa-validate, naa pa jud sila makita nga mga errors. So better to accept suggestions or kay dili man jud ta perfect, naa man jud siya mga nahimo nato nga naay mga error, grammatical error or ang pag-sequence nato sa test sa mga options ingon ana. So iagi gyud nato og content validation. Again, dili pwede diretso nato nga nakapili na ta og mga strong questions or sakto nga mga questions na pilian na nato, dayon ato na lang idiretso og gamit. Moagi sa gid siya og validation if possible by a test or measurement expert. If possible pag yun. 8. Revise the items based on expert review. O kani akong giingon kaganina, kung naa sila'y makita nga error sa atong test item, dili ta masuko. We have to accept this one because naay time na dili nato makita pero it needs pagyud expert to review our items. 9. Prepare master copy of the test, rating scale or questionnaire. Na natay copy, na test na revise na. So na jud tay copy at last, na jud ko'y copy. Then 10, make a final review of the master copy. O diba, after pagid siya gi-revise, kaya nakita sa expert, dapat mag-prepare pa tag master copy, then i-review pagid ang master copy kay basi naa pa jud to siya mga errors. 11. Prepare also the final answer key or scoring based on the master copy kay basin ang imong master answer key is katupatong sa daghan pa nga items. Like for example, you prepare answer key for 60 items, so dili na to siya pwede nga answer key. Maghimo na ka og final answer key based on the master copy. Kung like for example, in my case, nabilin is 20 items because I will be conducting a 20 item multiple choice test. So kato na lang pod ang akong himuan og final answer key, ang 20 items. Disregard the other items. 12. Reproduce copies for administration. So mag-reproduce na ta. Anad ta ng reproduction. Karon ga-reproduce tagdaghan kay nga modules. So kani siyang copy for the test is easy ra kay nato mag-reproduce ani kay dili man siya daghan kaayo. Kaya gali nato mo reproduce og daghan kay nga module. How much more the reproduction of the copies for the administration of our test in the action research. Okay, let's proceed. Klaro na tong steps in doing the paper and pencil instrument. We will have these ethical considerations. Dili lang pwede nga dire-diretso lang. Mukanda kog test mo, ana, diretso ka mo adto sa isa ka school nga imo-himuan og pilot testing. Matingala na lang ang school head nga niabot ka sa iyang atubangan, wala ka naghatag og letter. So these are the ethical considerations that we need to follow in collecting data through paper and pencil instruments. First one is permissions. Before administering a paper and pencil instrument to research participants, it is important to notify and get permission from your principal and school's division superintendent. So kani siya na isang letter and endorsement dito sa annex sa DepEd Order 17, ay DepEd Order 16, katong guideline sa pag-do og action research na dito yung mga annexes. So, guided ta ato dito. So, dili lang sa principal, kundi dili mo abot yun sa schools division superintendent. Usually, a research proposal is required along with a data collection instrument. Since action research participants are students, it is also necessary to obtain parental consent for their involvement in your research. Dapat na ay parents' consent. Dili malimtan ang parents' consent o ang letter to your principal and the principal of the one that you will be conducting pilot testing. Dili pwede ha, again, dili pwede mo diretso og adto sa school or conduct og action research nga walay permiso. Okay. Next, anonymity and confidentiality. In administering a paper and pencil instrument, it is important to make sure that respondents remain anonymous. Bitaw na, may name, ayaw lang butay name, pero possible wala lang gid untay name. And that the information they give for the research are kept confidential. Dili pwede na to ipasara-sara ang mga data nga atong nag-gather sa paper. Uy, mao ni result niya, 5/20. O di ba dili pwede na nato ipakita kun dili kitara gyud ang nga nag-research, nga researcher ang magtago. I-confidential nato na siya. These should be strict, adhered to, particularly if the data to be collected are sensitive and or extremely personal in nature. So, depende samot pa if ang ato ang research is sensitive. Dapat gyud siya is confidential. Imo gyud siyang itago, dili gyud siya strict gyud na siya nga confidential. Anonymity of the respondents enable us to get more honest responses. Okay, this is the advantage of the anonymity because they will give you a honest response. However, it is quite difficult to guarantee the anonymity because respondents can be easily identified using 3 or more demographic data points available. It is our responsibility as researchers to ensure their anonymity at all times. So, the ethical considerations, first is we need to have permission, and the second is anonymity and confidentiality. That's all for my topic about data gathering through paper and pencil instrument. Thank you and God bless.